So a quick review of productivity calculations. First of all, let's start with gross secondary productivity because that one is nice and easy to conceptualize and calculate. We start with a little animal and the amount of food that it is fed, so we know how much food we're feeding it, perhaps 1 kilogram. And the animal grows a little bit bigger because of the food that we fed it. And we also know that it has poop, so we can weigh the mass of its poop. Perhaps its food 200 grams. Because of this, we can't weigh the animal because the animal's been breathing out as well, so it's lost some carbon to carbon dioxide as respiration. So the mass of the animal is not going to help us. But we do know that it ate 1 kilogram of food. We know it lost 200 as poo. And so we know that 800 grams was assimilated, made part of its body. And that equals gross secondary productivity. Secondary because it's a consumer, gross because we haven't included this carbon dioxide that's disappearing. So it's the gross amount. So often in an exam then, they will give you this information about the food, about the feces, and then they will say calculate GSP. And then from GSP, they might tell you that 20 grams was lost as respiration. And that means that the gross secondary productivity, it's going to equal the net secondary productivity plus the respiration. When you add all of that together, you get the gross amount. So if we know what respiration is, and we know what GSP is, because we know how much food is assimilated, we can calculate NSP here, net secondary productivity. Likewise, in the exam, if they give us NSP, we can calculate R. So that's a fairly easy one because it is the one that we can actually measure the food, okay? Because the hard part to measure is always the carbon dioxide. How much carbon dioxide is being lost, how much carbon dioxide is entering. And that's really, really hard to measure. The food is much easier to measure in terms of carbon flows. So the plant, which is the gross primary productivity or net primary productivity, that is harder to measure, especially in an experiment. So for these, here we've got plant, and I can measure its mass at time 1, and I don't know how much CO2 has gone in there. So when I measure it again, and it's grown some bigger leaves, another flower, maybe it's grown some more leaves. Now it's been productive. It's got some leaves here. But I don't know how productive it's been. I don't know how much CO2 it lost, okay? I don't know how much it got fed, but I do know what the change has been. And so that change is net primary productivity, okay? Was net. This is the change in mass. Okay, and this can be done because the plant doesn't poo, right? So there's no pooing issue in here. Now the net secondary productivity is going to be harder. It's still the same thing. Gross primary productivity is going to equal net primary productivity plus R. The same thing again together. These two things combined will make gross primary productivity. So if you can calculate your MPP, and the exam question tells you what respiration is, you can then get your GPP. Or if the exam tells you what the GPP was, you can calculate MPP by the change in mass between these two times, and then you can find out what R is.